Let me get Chess with Chris in. Here's our first chatter of the night. Boom, bada bing. Great music. I just don't know what it's for. All right. Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good theme song to have. Why not? All right. Let's see. This was on X. Oops. X. Whoa. Hello. Okay. Let's try that again. Learn, study, my private studies or my studies. Ooh, it might be a public one. That's what's wrong with it. Yeah, I don't usually make them public. I always make them invite only. And for some reason, I made a mistake on that one. All right. So I've got two that I'm working on. One is on exchanging. I think what happens a lot of times is we don't know, should we exchange, right? Is it a good thing for us to exchange? So we are using for the next couple of weeks one of my favorite authors, Aaron Nimzovich, one of my favorite authors, dry sense of humor. My System, one of my favorite chess books of all time. A lot of people, say, oh, it's out of date and there's things that are wrong and he's just wrong. The computer proves he's wrong. Again, I teach principles and concepts. I learn by principles and concepts, and his principles and concepts are worth learning and understanding. Hey, James. Okay. All right. We appreciate it. All right, so we're going to learn together here a little bit. So I was torn between discussing, exchanging, because that's a basic thing I think we all struggle with sometimes. Do we simplify? Do we exchange? And we've all seen these IMs playing. I was watching Eric Rosen play the other day. But we see all these IMs playing, and what we call an IM move a lot of times is when someone offers an exchange, we retreat the bishop back to the first rank, and we say, "Oh, that's an IM move right there. Look, that's an IM move." So, yeah, I'm not going to debate if it's an IM move or not. Just the concept, though, that sometimes you want to retreat and not exchange pieces is viable and logical, right? I mean, it happens. All right, let me see where this one is 142. So let me rename it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through his book a little bit, and then hopefully we will be able to look at some games, and then hopefully we'll play some games, and we'll see if we can use the concepts that he teaches in My System. I think if I spent the rest of the summer walking through My System or my Praxis, or both, it would be time well spent, because it's just, again, it's one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite books. And I learned a lot when I read it the first time. It helped me improve my rating immensely when I first read it. It gave me an edge on a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand positional chess, don't play positional chess. They're only about the tactics. So it gave me an edge. I wish I had more tactical knowledge at the time. I probably would have even done better, but it was still good. All right. So I love it. So let's talk about it. Let's see what he's talking about. Now, the blockade, the concept of the blockade, and if this is white to move, and he's looking to, what is he going to do? He's going to blockade the passed pawns. So the first thing, let's just get it straight. Blockades are talking about passed pawns. In fact, all of his talking about blockade falls under chapter 4, the passed pawn. Okay, well, not right now, Chris, but maybe later. Maybe when I get to exchanging. Right now we're on blockade. But yeah, I can see that later. All right, so it's all about passed pawns. And we know some of the adages already about passed pawns, right? That passed pawns want to be pushed. So black should be trying to find out, how can I push this pawn? If he pushes it right away, it gets traded off. So he can't push it right away, but he should be looking for opportunities to push. He wants to push. And Nimzovich specifically says, is it enough to control that square? is it enough to keep black from pushing that pawn? And he says clearly no. He says it is not good enough to block that, to keep that pawn from moving. You must blockade that pawn. And the only question here in his mind for white is which piece to use to blockade it. Now, you might be looking and say, yeah, black's up a whole rook though. He could trade off the knight, the rook, he could trade off everything else, including the pawn, and win with the rook. Totally correct, totally true. But his example actually, for this purpose, doesn't even, it does have kings on it. Okay, some of his didn't even have kings on it. But this one does have kings on it. So let me read to you what he says about this. Okay, wait. I'd suggest perhaps but that's why OCB endgames are bad. They just blockade each other. I'd do bishop because of the pin on the knight. Okay, so define for me OCB endgames, because now you got me confused. Maybe on opposite colored bishop endgames. Yeah. So we'd have to talk about that, right? Yes. Opposite colored bishops tend to lead towards draws. Very much so. Understand. But I don't know why I talk about that so much. Okay. And it depends. You say it's not a good decision, but maybe you're happy with a draw. Hikaru Nakamura would have been happy with a draw in the candidates against Ding Liren. And if he could have gotten an opposite colored bishop endgame where he had good chances for a draw, he would have been very happy. Okay, so just some quick rules about pass pawns, because it's all about pass pawns. And he says that every sound, uncompromised pawn majority must be able, hey, Thinker Teacher, thanks for the raid. Hey guys, let me give you a quick shout out. And of course, a shout out to one of our favorites, Thinker Teacher. So Thinker Teacher, today we are going to be talking about blockades. We're talking about Aaron Nimzovich. We are getting into Aaron Nimzovich. Thank you very much. Always appreciate that. Let me give you a thank you there. I like the name too, Chesteroid, like asteroid. All right. Every sound uncompromised pawn majority must be able to generate a passed pawn. We'll go into that later. In fact, we might do a lesson on pass. We should do a lesson on passed pawns. Don't ask me why I'm starting. I know why I'm starting with the blockade. You can ask me why we're starting with the blockade. The reason we are starting with the blockade is because I have a student that was, by the way, all kudos. Thank you. Go out to Chess Wizard. I had a week and a half. I had about 7 days. It spanned over many of my sessions where I got to see my son, my daughter-in-law, and my grandchild. I was ecstatic. I was just as happy as could be. I got to see my 3-year-old granddaughter. It was a blast. But because they were here, I didn't work. I didn't play. I did play a little tennis, but I didn't even stream. And Chess Wizard, our own Chess Wizard, stepped in for me and streamed for me, so that you guys, so that the stream was there, right? I hate not showing up when I have scheduled streams like Tuesday. I didn't stream because that was their last night here, and Chess Wizard couldn't stream for me either. Okay? All right, so every pass pawn makes a promotion. That's not true. No, not in your games, no. But they all want to promote. Hey, Bustin, how's it going? Yes, so pass pawns, they want to be pushed. Okay, so again, in this situation, black could win without even the passed pawn, but it's an example. So back to, and we're going to spend time on passed pawns, but I just want to make sure we have this idea in mind that when you have a pawn majority, hey, thanks. When you have a pawn majority, that you should be able to create a passed pawn out of it. That's the whole idea of trying to get a situation where you have a pawn majority. You want to get a pawn majority and then out of that create a passed pawn. And so he talks about the candidate pawn has precedence, meaning the candidate pawn, the pawn that should become passed, should be the first pawn that we're pushing. All right, so that one has precedence. All right, I just want to lay that because those are the only 2 rules he gives before he gets right into talking about blockades as far as passed pawns. So we will go backwards later, and we will go over the few pages that he has specifically on passed pawns before he got to the blockade. But we're going to get right to the blockade. All right. So the blockade of passed pawns. Here we go. Quoting. The reason for the duty to blockade, for the purpose to blockade, and why these stated reasons are and must be of the greatest importance, not only for the chess thinker teacher, not only for the chess thinker, which he means chess theoretician, but also for the practical player. The exceedingly complicated because ever varying relations between the passed pawn and the blockader on strong and weak, elastic and inelastic blockaders. That's what he's going to be talking about. We're going to try to simplify. So the first thing he talks about is in this position, black has a passed pawn, which however can be blockaded by the knight or the bishop. By blockade, we mean the mechanical stopping of an enemy pawn by a piece. And I already told you that he says, it's not enough to say, oh, I could, if he pushes it, I'm going to take it off. That's not enough, folks. He says, no, you have to stop it as early as possible and use that square to attack from. So if we move the knight here, we can look and see that the knight gets to hit all these squares. So that's one option. And we also saw, like just with Chris said, he would like the bishop because it creates a pin. We love pins, right? We love finding alignment issues of our opponents. So we're going to look for those pins when we can. Now, I said that he had kings on the board. That's not true. The black king wasn't on the board. So the diagram that he shows in his book doesn't even have the black king on the board because he's not trying to play out this position, but I added the king. We could also add a white rook if we wanted to make it almost equal, right? Where black had the only winning chances with the extra passed pawn. Okay, but he says this stoppage is achieved by placing one of our own pieces directly in front of the pawn to be blockaded. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Pawns can't move. They can only go forward. They can take diagonally. So to blockade a pawn, and we're only talking about pawns. We don't blockade pieces. We blockade a pawn by putting a piece in front of it. And what kind of pawns are we trying to blockade? Passed pawns. Ah, you like the knight then? Yes, yes, yes. All right, well, let's see. In all similar cases, the question arises, does not this blockade entail an unnecessary expenditure of energy? Why put a piece here if he can't push without losing it, right? Why waste that time? Why put a piece there and waste that energy, as he calls it? Tempo, maybe, right? Why waste that? Well, he says it isn't sufficient to keep the pawn under observation. And he likens it to a criminal. He says you can't just watch a criminal. You have to stop him from committing the crime, hopefully, right? So you don't want to just watch him. Okay. Let's see. And he says things like this. He says, is the blockading action in general worth using a piece for? A whole piece we're going to stick here for the purpose of just stopping this pawn. Is that a good use of a piece? And, well, you already know the answer, obviously. But he says, will not the mobility of the piece be diminished to the extent that it takes its blockading duties seriously, in other words, not leaving, and will it not see its action reduced to a significant degree? Will it not be degraded to the status of a stopped, immobilized pawn? Briefly put, is the blockade economical? So this is the way Aaron Nimzovich wrote. Hey, it was back in the day, 1920s, 40s, 30s, whatever, but I still love it. Good sense of humor. Dry, but a good sense of humor. He says, I am pleased to be able to offer you what I think is a rigorous solution to this problem we have raised. Now, here we go. The mediocre critic would settle the question with a brief declaration. I probably am guilty of this. The brief declaration that passed pawns must be stopped. The same way I like to say passed pawns should be pushed. So passed pawns want to be pushed. Passed pawns must be stopped. But in my view, this would be evidence of the critic's pathetic lack of understanding. That's me. I am pathetic. I have a pathetic lack of understanding. The why and wherefore are extraordinarily important. It would be ludicrous to offer for publication a novel that does not include the psychological factor. Just as I think it would be ridiculous to want to write a textbook of chess strategy without going deeper into the nature of the pieces at work in the game. That I can't argue with. I'm not writing a book, though. I'm just helping people hopefully learn some principles and concepts and do better at chess. So that's my excuse for being pathetically lacking of understanding. All right. Let's see. My little granddaughter, by the way, gave me a runny nose, so I got to deal with that today. Anyway, it was worth it, guys. It was worth it. Let's see. If in what follows the viewpoint chess outline still comes across to the reader as unfamiliar and strange, I nevertheless can only emphasize the fact that for me, the passed pawn and all the other actors in the game have a soul, just like a human being, and have wishes that slumber unrecognized within them, and fears of whose existence they are only dimly aware. Like I said, a dry sense of humor. All right. So he goes on, and then we say there are 3 reasons to logically compel us to undertake a blockade. So let's cut to the chase, and let's look at the 3 reasons to undertake a blockade. Wow. All right. The first reason, the passed pawn is a criminal that belongs under lock and key. Tepid measures such as police surveillance are not enough. So, yeah, okay. Still not telling us what we want to hear, but I am telling you, as I mentioned, he believes you have to blockade, not just watch the pawn. Can't just watch the pawn. All right. So he goes on. The passed pawn's lust to expand, to become a queen. The awakening of the men in the rear. All right. So in this position, he says in this position, the black troops, bishop, rook, and knight, as we like to say, are grouped around the passed pawn. Example, they willingly arrange themselves in a complex with the d5 pawn as its nucleus. Look at that. They are all protecting the d5 pawn. All right. The knight and bishop protect the passed pawn. In addition, the rook at d8 lends it a certain impetus, ability to move, and is therefore supporting it. So powerful is the pawn's lust to expand in this instance that the d-pawn often seems ready to advance on its own accord, just run up the board, when such an act would cost it its life. As we know, d4, d5, d5 to d4 we know will be taken. The bishop at b7 now has a diagonal aimed at the enemy king. The bishop at b7, if this pawn were to move and everything were to trade, he has a diagonal aimed at the enemy king, towards the enemy king. The rook has an open file if this pawn is traded off. And as I told you, you can lose this pawn because you have the rook. You could trade off the bishop for the bishop, the knight for the knight, and you win easy. Right? We know that. All right. And the knight has a new central square if you were to trade off this pawn. All right? So he says the pawn itself, passed pawns have multiple benefits to them. One of them is to become a queen. One of them is to threaten to become a queen. And just the threat by itself forces white to make certain moves. So by pushing, he's saying you're going to take, right? You can't let it just keep pushing. So you're going to take the pawn, and at that time, this bishop gets a free diagonal, the rook gets a free file, because that pawn will be gone. He gets an open file, which he's already on, and the knight gets a new central square to go to. All right? Push pawn, push d-pawn. Perfect name for this lesson. Wow. Thanks for the follow. That's I'm just flabbergasted. I'm speechless at the fact that your username is perfect for this lesson. Push the D pawn. And it's the D pawn. It's great. Anyway. Alrighty, ready. Let's go. So the D pawn often seems ready to advance on its own accord. The bishop at b7 will become free. This accelerated advance for the sake of opening lines at the cost of self-annihilation. Pushing that pawn, giving its life so that the pieces can come to life. Okay? And remember, this is just he didn't even have the black king on the board. So we're just talking about, in general, the position. Okay? Yeah. All right, Chester Wright. Brand new account. He just made it because I was saying this. Okay. Where was I? See, now you make me laugh. I can't even remember where I was. So this cost of self-annihilation is in most cases characteristic of a pawn roller. a compact advancing mass of pawns in the center. So the odds game in chapter 1, which provides All right, accordingly, we say that the first reason that logically compels us to blockade is the fact that the passed pawn is such a dangerous criminal. So you think about it, by blockading this pawn, it keeps this bishop blocked in. It takes away this square for this knight. Now gives it, yeah, he has this one. Excuse me. Woo! Gesundheit. All right. And it keeps this rook from seeing an open file. So this blockade does more than stopping the passed pawn. It makes the pieces behind it less powerful, less effective. This bishop needs to move just to get a diagonal. Right? The knight can go here, but he can't get to this square, just one less center square. So he's saying by stopping the pawn, not even taking it. Yeah, he could push and we could take it, but I don't want to take it. As we know, I can lose the game because all he has to do is trade off the knight for the knight and the bishop for the bishop, and we've got a lost game. And so how do we avoid that? One way is to blockade that pawn and use this square. It's safe from the rook. The bishop can't hit it anyway. So the only piece that can hit it is the knight. Right? Only piece that can hit it. And even if we use the bishop, the only piece that could hit it would be the knight because the rook's blocked. So we have jumping off points to go do stuff maybe. Who knows? All right. So he says, accordingly, we say that the first reason that logically compels us to blockade is the fact that the passed pawn is such a dangerous criminal that it is by no means enough to put it under police surveillance. And the bishop, the knight and the bishop. No, the fellow has to be placed under lock and key. So we take away his freedom completely, not allowing him to move, even to sacrifice. He can't even sacrifice himself. You're taking away the choice from black to sacrifice that pawn. I like that. No, the fellow has to be The process just illustrated, we mean the sacrifice of the passed pawn, is altogether typical. He will fall when he marches forward, although it doesn't seem necessary that a whole host of men behind the pawn should come to life. Often it is only a single piece that profits by the advance, but a lot of times that is enough. So why did we let three pieces come to life? We shouldn't. Well, with the same justification as, say, Ibsen, who in the final scene of his play, Ghosts, he goes off and talks about plays. And plays of the time. I've never heard of the play Ghosts. I might want to read it, but I've never seen it. All right, so let's look at the next example. So in this example, it is black to move. It is black to move. And he says, what do you think? He doesn't say that. He asks other questions. But this is a game of his. He's black against take Holstein in Baden-Baden, 1925. All right, so we can analyze the position together. And let's do that before we look at his analysis. Because I'm always trying to learn and get better at my craft. And part of my craft is analyzing positions, finding right moves, and all that stuff. So, if you don't mind, let's take a look. Yes, block the criminal. Here's a pass pawn for white, but it is black's move. And black, does he have a candidate? He has a pawn majority now, 2 against 3. So he does have a candidate pawn that he could push. And if he takes, we take, and we have a candidate pawn, by the way, we get a check at that moment. It could be interesting. He could look to blockade, but actually he has no piece to blockade this pawn at all. He has no way to blockade it at the moment. So let's go through it again. So first thing what I like to do is check for material. Pawns, equal number of pawns. Equal number of pawns. 2 knights against the bishop and a knight. So the bishop is a small imbalance. I'm not saying bishops are better than knights. As you guys know, at our level, knights many times are better than bishops. As an example, I've heard it said, I think Gotham Chess said it. He said, if you're going into an endgame and you have a knight, do not resign. Even if you're down a knight for a rook, do not resign. Because you always have a chance if you have a knight. Because there are so many tricky forks that people miss. So you always, the saying that he uses, and I like it, is you always have a chance if you have a knight. So if you have a knight, you don't take a draw, you don't give up. You could play, right? You could play it out. So that's just a humorous thing when you think about it. If you have a knight, you have a chance. They don't say if you have a bishop, you have a chance. It's if you have a knight, you have a chance. All right. Yes, let's look it over. So first thing is material. I just like to check balance and material. And the material is balanced. Like I said, bishop for a knight is a imbalance. All right, what else do we have? We have an unprotected piece attacked by a queen. We have a piece attacked twice, but it's protected 1, 2, 3 times, so that one's safe. All right, we have a poorly developed knight over here on the edge that's not really doing anything. We don't like knights on the rim. We have an exposed king. My 2 pawns are way out in advance. We have a slightly exposed king, not as bad as this king. We do have a rook, a queen, a knight handy, all towards the king side, while white has not as many pieces over here to protect, so we do have a little bit of advantage in that. Again, we have the unprotected piece. Do we have any pieces that are attacked by white that we can attack? No. That's protected. Right? That's protected. And we don't have anything else that we're attacking off the bat. All right. So on the white has a rook on his semi-open file. We do not have one on ours. White has a passed pawn already, and we have a potential passed pawn. A lot of conversation going on there. Maybe we move the knight so that we could protect the pawn, and at the same time prepare to push the candidate pawn. And if he pushes to lock it up, because that bishop would be a good blockader, then we can jump the knight into here maybe, but don't know where we go after that. I guess we can threaten to win this pawn. I don't know. It looks interesting, if not dicey. All right, so that all said, what do you guys think the plan is for black? What should black do? Now I'm going to look at the book soon, so tell me your guys' thoughts. So A6, E6. E6 is also stopped after knight to G6. Why is that? Why can't he push? Because we can't take that pawn. Why is that stopped? Hey, Gridiron, yes you are. Because of rook on F to E8, threatening the pawn. Yep, and the pawn is going to be very hard to protect. This is true. And white should not push that pawn too early. Remember, passed pawns want to be pushed, but not if we're going to just lose them for no reason. We want to open up lines, right? We want to open up lines. So we don't want to push first, but if the knight goes here, maybe we come here first, prepping. Maybe we bring the rook over, prepping, right? We don't push right away. Definitely. All right, let's see what Nimzovich has to say, because I don't know the answer either. I'm curious what he says. He says, black, whose queen side and center appear to be under threat. The center and the queen side seem to be under threat. Seeks to turn his candidate to account. Since this candidate is 90% a passed pawn, the same rules apply to it as for a passed pawn. And in the game, they're followed. Let's see. Now, we don't know if these are the best moves, right? We could turn on the engine. And white's winning. Let's see what before that move. Okay, so white is ahead by half a point. And the engine says do this. Now, you have to remember, this is an engine today versus 1925. And if we look at it, what's interesting is, if we take here, can't the queen just take here, right? Let's see. Yeah, the queen would take there, and then he likes this. And yeah, now, and that's the best move supposedly, and black is down a full pawn and going to be down more material. And black is going to be down more material. So this is where I tell you that an engine is nice, but I'd rather learn from a book, and I'd rather apply principles I can apply over the board. I can apply while playing over the board or even online. I want to learn principles that I can apply. So taking here because the engine says it's the best move, and then you lose this pawn, and then you lose this pawn. I don't want to play. I don't want to play out black's game in that situation. I really don't. I don't want to play that out. And it keeps improving for white, so I don't know why. All right, so we go here, and he says immediately, white says he's winning. The computer says white's winning, but that's okay. Let's see what he says happened in the game, because again, right, we're not talking about playing a computer. So what happened in the game, like he could have pushed here and give him a passed pawn, but look, it would have been blockaded. Exactly what we're teaching about. White could have said, well, I can push this pawn, and the pawn is blockaded. I did my job. That pawn isn't moving anywhere. But as we know, we create some weak squares, and then maybe we can even push this pawn and take this. You know, we don't know, right? I mean, if we went here, the computer says go here, okay? I don't know how many of us would have looked at that. I would have looked at this. I guess, okay, so that's not so good. I don't know why. I mean, so you take back, and then the queen drops back to attack another piece, and your queen can come over here. And still, you know, while we're losing by a lot, supposedly, it feels more human. Feels like what I would do in a real game. But anyway, what actually happened was this. Uh-oh. I don't know what the first time chatter said, but he said something to get blocked. Interesting. Sorry about that. We do have, just so you guys know, all my raiders, the new guys, we do have very strict Nightbot because I teach chess. And I teach chess to children. And so I feel an obligation to make sure that the stream is child friendly. It says family friendly. It could say child friendly. All right. So anyway, sorry about that. So if you want to hear the cursing and the ranting, not me, sorry. Somebody else. Okay. So G takes F4. And what does black do here? What does Nimzovich do here? So first of all, the computer tells us that was a bad move. Okay, that's a bad move. But it is the move that was made in the game. So let me promote it. Okay, that's the move that was made in the game. The computer likes king to h8. I don't think any of us are going to look at king to h8. Are you? I'm not. Okay. All right, so what do you want for black? What would you do as black? So we could take with check. I didn't say why not. Oh, you're talking about why the computer? Don't worry about it. But, so this would be with check, but we have to be leery that we have an alignment issue, right? We always talk about alignment issues. Love alignment, love talking about alignment. We have to be wary and aware of that alignment issue. Now, I like that. You can even get this in afterwards. Feels like you could get this in. I don't know. Chesteroid, G takes F4, looks good, right? It looks good, but yeah. So if you went here, he might go here. But you know, you have this move. And you have it later or early. You don't have to do it right away. You can do it right away. You can then move the king to here. You know, you can even do this first and then do this, I guess. You have options. You have options. But anyway, so I think it's playable. It's not what Nimzovich did. All we're trying to do is guess what Nimzovich did. We're not guessing the best move. The computer thinks the best move is this move. But I'm asking you, what is Nimzovich talking about? So let's see. Nimzovich gives himself an exclamation point. Boom. Nimzovich says exclamation point. Yeah, he did. He did. Bishop to G2. You have no, I mean, you could go here. Is your only other legal square, right? Okay, that's your only legal square, and it starts making your king uncomfortable because you can't go there. So understandable going here. And then he plays knight on h, the one that was poorly placed. He gets that one activated and into the game. So again, if I'm black playing against white, I'm happy. I think I'm doing a good job. I don't care what the computer says. I think I'm doing it. This feels right. This feels good. This feels playable to me. I think I could find these moves. These make sense. All right, this makes sense. All right, So the sacrifice of a passed pawn, the candidate pawn, the f pawn, the sacrifice of that candidate pawn, thus freeing up a square, f5, for piece to the rear, the knight at h6. So think about it. What he's saying is back here, the plan he had was to push here. He expected, now this, we talked about this too, guys. We expect him to take. And I've had people tell me, oh yeah, back in the old days, you had to accept gambits. You had to. It was like a rule. No. And it wasn't an unwritten rule. It wasn't a written rule. It's not a rule at all. You don't have to accept gambits. You didn't have to accept gambits back then. But that's what they like to say, that you had to. I don't know where that stuff comes from. But he could have pushed. And I think nowadays, a lot of people might push. They might say, no, I'm going to lock this baby up. Now, that's a diagonal that the bishop can't get to right now. So, that could be iffy. You do still have this pawn that's under attack, so you got to deal with that. You have multiple ways, though. Well, not that way, because we're not going to really drop that pawn, but I'm not crazy. I kind of like this the way it is. Wish there was another way to protect that pawn. I don't even know, we know what the computer said from here. I think the computer said do that. So maybe that. It's just terrible. I don't like it. But anyway, yes, they did. Yes. It was considered to be less cowardly, right? Hey, if I'm offering to sacrifice a gambit, you should take it and try to prove me wrong, which the best players did, right? Okay. Anyway, so, but they took, and then what do? He says you push because it was all about getting the square for his knight. Now, we're saying this is about blockading, but in a lot of ways, this is about outposting, right? He's finding an outpost for his knight. He's improving his knight. He was trying to improve his knight, which was not well placed. And he's doing it with tempo grabs that the queen doesn't have time yet to take here. Okay, the queen doesn't have time yet. So now he gives away that pawn. As you can tell, he says, take the pawn. All right. Which hopefully, we hope that isn't silly enough to do it. But anyway, he went queen to b3, does not take the pawn. And by the way, this is another thing that you could probably find if you look at it on the computer. The computer can say, yeah, you could take that pawn and weather the whole storm and you keep the pawn. But again, it's a computer looking that far in advance, where a human's like, yeah, I don't like my queen being over here while all this bad stuff is going to happen to me. So, queen to b3. Nimzovich takes the pawn. D takes c4. Queen takes c4 check. And king to h8. Finally moves the king over. And queen to c3. He still doesn't want this pawn push. He doesn't want the knight in here. He's trying to keep this rank free of black's pieces. h5. Harry gets the move. Way back then, Harry's storming in. Rook on a to d1. h4. We're still coming, buddy. Rook to d3. And knight to d5. Taking another outpost. Attacking the queen. Another outpost. Two knights hitting here. So, like maybe the queen can go here and stop that. But there you go. No, Harry likes to go for walks, and he doesn't like to stop. And a lot of players, that's, man, talk about something that's become more in vogue and came from probably the computer age of chess engines, is that Harry push. Wow. You see that more in Grandmaster level games, candidate games. It's just amazing how much we see that H-pawn push. All right. Let's get back to it. So he goes H4, rook to D3, knight to D5. He does not trade. He says queen to D2. Now, to me, that does the same, and it's probably better at D2. I didn't think about D2. I was just thinking, how can I protect this square? And this, how can I protect the square from here, moving my queen? So there or there, either one worked. Okay. Queen to D2, rook to G8. Alignment, guys. We're back to alignment. You can't talk enough about alignment. You line up your pieces with the enemy king or with the enemy queen, and it's going to be good. So here's a great example. Nimzovich is doing things to align his pieces with the enemy king. Rook to g8. Black supports his pawn majority vigorously. 2 against 1. He's still looking at the pawn majority. Bishop takes d5. Says, nope, you're out of there. C takes d5. Right? Good question. Should we use the rook? Should we use the pawn? The rook would have been a blockader instead of the pawn being there. And that way you would have attacked the knight. But then your rook would have been susceptible to attack. Okay. So C takes d5, king to h1. Now that the bishop is gone, he doesn't have to worry about the bishop getting trapped. And we play g3, trying to crack it open. And black obtained an attack. That's all he said. And black obtained an attack. That's a drag. He obtained an attack. We don't get to see the finale. I don't even know. Let's see. That's what the computer wants. Again, human-wise, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 1, 2. Wouldn't you take? Wouldn't you take and open up the king? Or take with the knight? I would think you would. Right? I would think you would, but this is the way the computer says to play it. Oh my gosh, yeah. This is like amazing chess. Somebody would figure all this out. Again, a computer. I do like alignment. I gotta say, I like alignment. And then we go back and, oh my gosh. Okay, enough. But black ended up winning that game with an attack. He doesn't go into explain anymore. But I think it's interesting. I think we see that this pawn is blockaded by the knight. We found an outpost for the knight, which blockading squares many times are very good outposts. We still have a pawn majority against a pawn minority. I think black needs to trade off more pieces so he can make his majority more threatening. White has 2 passed pawns, by the way, that Nimzovich just kind of ignores in his explanation. Just ignores. Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's check out the next one that he gives. And he talks about this one. He says, this one is white is Alekhine. So, one of the greatest chess players of all time. And he's playing tray ball. Don't know. And then we say, what do we do here? What does white play here? I actually found this move. I'll let you guys look at it. And then we'll do an analysis. Remembering that we're talking about blockades might help a little bit, but it's probably not going to happen for a while. Queens are off the board. Knights are equal. Knights, 2 knights, bishop, bishop. Actually the same color bishop, not even the OCB that Chris was talking about. 2 rooks, 2 rooks. King has an open position, but this king is like, wow, we're out there. Why? The queen is off the board. Many times when the queen is off the board, there's a bishop and a queen off the board, the king can become an aggressive, attacking, dynamic piece. That king is, and Alekhine was known for that. So, bad knight, bad knight, bad knight. Stuck off on the side of the board. Can't come back. Can't come back. Can't go in. Can't go in. That knight is stuck. So I've got 1 dead piece for white. I got a decent bishop, but he's biting on a lot. A lot. I got a rook on a semi-open file. I got the other rook protecting against the semi-open file. So I have 1 good piece, it feels like. Right? I have 1 really good piece. Actually 2. I say the king is a good piece because he is an attacking piece. But the knight's my best piece. So you would think black would, as soon as possible, kick that knight out of Dodge. Get out of town, knight. You would think he'd be getting rid of that knight as soon as possible. Just a thought. If I'm black, I'm cramped. My pieces are not poorly developed, but this knight is on the 2nd rank. We don't want him in the 2nd rank. Same way we don't want this guy on the edge. The bishop is stuck behind pawns, right? So my bishop is not very good, although his bishop doesn't have that much scope either. My rook's a little better. But my king is the one that looks a whole lot better than his king. So what move do you guys like for white? What move do you like for white? I actually found this one. H4 Sudakus! Hola, mi amigo. Hola. Yeah, I love giving you shout outs, but you're not streaming anymore, so it's like I want to give you a shout out just to say hey. But H4, huh? Sudaku said he'd be playing H4, and he's put emphasis on it. We're even doing it with a capital H. Chesteroid, good move. You and Alakine and me and I, my friend. You, Alakine, and I all agree on E4. But H4, yeah, push Harry. But no, it's E4. And Nimzovich says the mobile center is set in motion. Now, what do you do as black? Kicking the knight, very good, and trying to improve our A6 knight, because then our A6 knight can move. And if you go here, we could trade it off. Or we could still go here. So our knight can move once we get that knight out of here, and I'll bring that knight back into the game. Maybe, yes. Yes, Chesteroid, I like it. So, what do you say? What do you say? Now, we also said this was the only good piece for white. So I'm thinking black would push here, right? You take, I take. You take, I take, or take. And there should be a lot of trades, right? Shouldn't it be okay? Feels like it should be okay. That is what black did. Black pushed with the pawn. All right, now what does white do? By the way, Nimzovich says knight to c7 would lose the c pawn. So, why? Because we have 2 on it, right? And you could take with the knight, or you could take, oh no, wait, he has 2 on it. How does he lose the c pawn? Can't lose it right away, right? Oh, can you just take? No, you just can't take. So how does that lose the c pawn? What am I missing, guys? Why does that lose the c pawn? If we take, he takes. You can't take. There's 2 on it, but there's 2 defending it. Actually, there's another one defending it. Even the bishop is defending it. How does he lose the c pawn? What does he mean by that? He says it flat out, though, for knight to c7 would lose the c pawn. So that makes it feel like he's thinking you would take it right away, but I don't know. Excuse me. Oh, my daughter, my granddaughter. So I'm not sure what he means by lose this, how he loses the c pawn. I'm not quite sure. Right? I'm not sure how he loses the c pawn. If we do this order, you could push, because this pawn can't ever take, but we have 1, 2, 3, and if the knight takes less, it still protects the rook. And if we push, we can't do this, because then we could push again and we'd fork. So what happens if we push here? Can black take? Black can't take this way, just lose the rook. And if he doesn't take, we're going to push. And if he moves, can't move there. If he moves here, now we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Maybe we could just take. I'm not sure. We should come back and look at that, because he says on knight to c7 that loses. That loses. Why does this lose the c pawn for black? So you say you don't trade knights? Maybe, yeah, you drop to b4 and double up on the pawn. Yeah, I mean, that's possible, right? Now you come here, but the knight can move, and then you have 1, 2, 3, and he still has 1, 2, 3 protecting, so you don't get to win it, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like you get to win it. Something to look at. We'll look at that. We'll look at that. But right now, black played here anyway. So black played f6. And what do you want to have happen? What do you guys want to have happen? It's e takes d5. F takes e5. And then what do you think white does? What do you think happens now? Bishop to a4 after you trade knights. Pinning the, hitting the pawn again. If the pawn moves, you take the bishop. I don't know. We'll take a look at it, Chess Wizard. We'll take a look. Yeah, we can take a look. I mean, we can look at it real quick if you want. Here, you say take here, here. So this just drops the pawn. But I have 1, I have 2, I have 3. You only have 3 attacking it. So I don't think I have to do anything at the moment. Do I? Do I? I wonder, can I even push? Can I even push? Take, king take back, and then what? I don't know. Yeah, I don't see it. Anyway, okay, let's go back to here. So, what is white's move here? What's the move here, guys? What does white do? What does Alekhine do? And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. So what does Alekhine do? Can you find the move that Alekhine played? Easy. E takes, e6. F takes e5. I got this offer, I got this offer. Yep, okay, D takes E. Okay, easy. I like, oh, easy, not, you don't mean easy, you just mean that. Okay. So this is what Nimzowitsch writes about the move. The passed D5 pawn, it's passed if he pushes it, it's a passed pawn. Check this out. Has suddenly come into existence, is obviously a mayfly, the fruit of a sudden inspiration, and seemingly destined to pass away just as quickly. But appearances are deceiving. Even this butterfly-like, unearthly, poetically glorified D5 pawn knows enough to subordinate itself to the iron laws of chess logic. I told you I like a sense of humor. There now occurred the move none of you guys have, D6. Yeah, king to e4 might have been a bit optimistic. E6, guys. I mean D6. D6. Here, the sacrifice of the pawn is not for the purpose of freeing up the square from which it moved, right? Giving this square away. It's not about freeing up that square. What is it about? And yet, its advance is entirely in the spirit, if not to the letter of our rule. The pawn lays down its life by advancing. The main variation would now be, he says, e4 check. To prevent, what would happen? To prevent this, because after rook takes d6, he says the possible capture f takes e5 would be bad because now this pawn falls, right? Rook has to move. And you could go here and give up the exchange, and you can't take back that way. But anyway, or you move back, and you lose that pawn. So you're going to lose a pawn, another pawn out of it. So he says instead that that's the move, check. Okay? E4 check. King does get to go to e4, so it wasn't so overly optimistic. Rook takes d6 now, no more threat of winning that pawn. And guess what we do here, guys? What does white do here? And I must say, I haven't seen a blockade yet. There's supposed to be about blockade, right? This isn't a blockade chapter, but it is about passed pawns also. But I just haven't seen the blockade yet. So what do you guys come up with? Come on, what you guys come up with? Yes, king to e5. Gridiron. You're an outstanding player. Still attacks the rook and allows us to win the pawn if you leave. So black says, no. We don't have to leave. We'll do rook on c to d8. We'll protect that pawn. Then we get, ready for it? Yeah, why not? It's attacked twice, right? So bishop takes. Note that the intervention of the king was made possible only because of the pawn sacrifice d6. All right, so he says he wins that pawn, and Alekhine went on to win the game. Okay. Now, what's interesting to me is this was supposed to be about blockade, and I must have missed something because I don't see the blockade. I'm missing. Where's the blockade? Where's the blockade? This is a good example of passed pawns giving up their life to allow space for your pieces. That's a great lesson. I like that lesson. I don't see the blockade part of the lesson. So we're going to have to give Nimzovich a minus sign on his examples for the blockade. All right, yeah, he doesn't show a good example of blockade. Now, here's a full game example we're not going to do. We're going to jump to the second reason for the blockade. Now, in one way, he showed you that by allowing passed pawns without blockading them, the person had some advantages, right? I mean, that's what we saw. We saw advantages taken by the person with the passed pawns because they weren't blockaded. Now, I don't know if they had a chance to blockade them, but that's what we saw. The king isn't really blockading. It's not a passed pawn. They have to be passed pawns to be blockaded. All right. So the second reason we do blockading. Optimism in chess and the secure position of the blockader against possible frontal attacks. And so we talked about that when you're blockading from in front of a pawn, there's no frontal attacks, right? Okay. So it's a secure position, a relatively safe position. The enemy pawn as our own protective wall, same thing. And the deeper lying mission of the blockading piece, the weak point, right? This point is weak because normally they don't have any pawns to chase you away either. Just usually. You're blockading, they can't just chase you. If they could chase you away, you're not going to be able to blockade them if they could chase you with a pawn. No, it's not just a king playing lesson. The other one might have felt like it, though. All right. Just looking for another good example. Let's see. I actually have a note I wrote. The deeper the blockade, the better. In other words, the sooner the blockade, the better. The closer the pawn gets to queening, the less effective the blockade becomes. So you want to blockade as soon as possible. You don't want to wait for the pawn to get here and blockade it. You don't want to wait for it to get here or here or here. As early as you can blockade it, you're better off. And if you can blockade it and put your piece on the 6th rank, remember, knights are so much better on the 6th rank. And on the 5th rank is better than the 4th rank. The 4th rank is better than the 3rd rank. 2nd rank, 1st rank are not good. The 8th rank and the 7th rank are not as good. Your best ranks for the knight are right in here. So if you can blockade a pawn so that your knight is on one of those 4 ranks, better place for the knight to be a blockader. And knights are awesome blockaders most times because they get to attack squares from which nothing on those squares can attack the knight except another knight. So if that knight's off the board, then this knight is like safe until this rook can come around and attack him from a side or from behind. And that knight, though, meantime, gets to attack all these squares, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yep. All right. So the second reason was that you're safe from frontal attack. The third reason is the paralysis resulting from a blockade is by no means local in its nature. So he's saying the paralysis of these pieces not being able to move. Even in our last example, even after we take with the king being here, the pieces don't have a lot of squares to go to, right? They can't go here, they can't go here. The rook can't, so it's the concept, right? The concept. Okay. But it's not local in nature. The transplanting of the paralysis phenomena to the rear of the blockaded piece. So again, no blockade here. Both of those were showing why you should blockade, not the benefit of blockade. On the dual nature of the pawn as such, on the pessimistic outlook and how this can congeal into the blackest melancholy. Okay. Let's put up another position and see if it helps any, because that wasn't so clear. Let's go back to our. We need to go to a board editor. All right, let's clear the board, and we're going to set up. Let me change my screen so you guys can see without any problem. And we're going to set up the next position from his book. All right, king and a bishop. Wow, not very well developed pieces. I feel that already. Okay, let's move this off to our blockade. All right, what does he say here? What does he say? He says, in the diagram position, the pawns at e6 and d5 are thoroughly blocked. Right? They're passed pawns. They are a pair of passed pawns. They are thoroughly blocked. The bishop can't come out. The bishop can't come out. The rook has no scope. This is a beautiful thing. You push this pawn, and the bishop is dead, and the rook is dead. You got to sacrifice something or try to get the king over here. If you push this pawn pushes, and the bishop is still dead. This is a beautiful position. The king can't come over and help because we go down a queen a pawn. All right, good, Metal Eagle. I like your streams, my friend. Yes. Hey, maybe we could do a collaboration. I've been trying to line up collaborations. I'm doing one with Marichess on the 29th, next Friday. So maybe we could do get you back into streaming. We'll do a little, maybe a collab. Let me know if you're interested. We could do a collab. You could direct message me either on Twitch or via Discord if you like. Hey, there you go. Don't have to wait. You know my Discord, right? If you could, please Discord me, and I'll get your Discord, and then we can chat. And we'll work out a date, either one that's good for your stream day or my stream day, or none of the above, and we'll do a different day. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do a collaboration. All right. So you like, if we were to be playing this, you like king to g4, king to g7, king to g5, taking the opposition, and I think the game's over anyway. I mean, yeah, black has no moves. Black can't move. So eventually, and the beauty of this knight is it can move. So the knight can move. If the pawn moves, you take back the knight. So this is when Nimzowitsch talks about the elasticity of the pieces that are blockading. Can the knight move? Yes, because if you push, you could take back. Now, should this knight move? No, because remember, the blockade does more than just stop this pawn. The blockade does more than stop the pawn. The blockade is stopping this bishop. So the bishop has no scope, and the bishop can't go here because we're attacking the square from behind the block pawn. This knight can move. He can move and reposition. He can move and do whatever he wants, because if this pawn pushes, he takes, and that bishop still has no scope. So this knight has the opportunity to move and threaten other squares. Doesn't want to get too far away, But he could do it and then probably come back and win the pawn, or the king can come over and win the pawn. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I should ask her about. Thank you. I'm going to add that to my questions. Is her music? Yeah, actually, we work together. I'll tell that story when I collab with her. But anyway, she teaches some of my students in real life lessons. All right, so pretty easy to figure. We can figure this one out, right? But the bishop and rook are prisoners in their own camp, and white actually has winning chances in spite of his material deficit, the rook for the knight. White has the winning chances. I think he has all the winning chances. Let's just see what the it says it's totally equal. This would be a fun one to play out. So this says this is totally equal somehow. Somehow the computer says this is totally equal. I do not get it. I will admit I do not get it. I'm going to put that one. I have another study that I use. And let me put this in my, where is it? It is for tournaments, equal positions. I would love to do a tournament from this position. Yeah, I would love to be white. I don't know if I want to play black. I don't know if I could figure out the idea on how to save the game as black. Maybe you have to just give away the bishop and then get the rook out onto the board. Because if you don't get the rook out onto the board, you lose. So maybe it's you give away the bishop. Yeah, I know, right? The computer says this is a flat-out draw. This would be interesting. We can, out of curiosity, we could say, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. What the computer thinks happens. Okay, now he's threatening to get the bishop out, and when he does, the rook is going to come to life. Interesting. And don't we just now see? I'm dumb. I'm dumb, guys. I wouldn't have protected that pawn. I wouldn't have pushed. But I guess I don't have to, because if he goes here, then you go check and you win the rook. Okay, so I am dumb. And, and then the computer says you go here, and then you still get a check where you get to still promote. This is good. Look at this. All right, the computer's showing us how this should be a draw. And then you got moves like this, right? This is like, what? And no, you don't do it. You go here, because now that knight was supposedly trapped, and it is, because, right, if he goes anywhere, the bishop takes, you take back. And so now we just go here. It's just, and you don't take. You don't take because then the king gets in here, I guess, yeah. And then the knight gets to come in. Or the knight comes this way. The knight comes this way. But then you still can't take because the bishop takes, the king takes, and you run. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ow. Yeah, I know, right? But that was interesting. So at just first blush, I thought, the king can't go this way because you were just queen. But obviously the king needs only two. The king can't go there. King needs two squares to get the bishop out, which has the rook protect the square. Wow, this is going to be a fun one to see people playing in a tournament. Yeah. I've heard about it. I didn't see anything. I just heard about it. I just heard a little bit about it. Magnus Carlsen. Let's just see what comes up with Magnus Carlsen. Says he has no inclination to defend his world championship title. 16 hours ago. He's not motivated 9 hours ago. 2 hours ago, Carlsen's abdication. Reactions from the chess world. Statement by FIDE president regarding Magnus's intention not to play. That was 1 day ago. So I don't know. And is he really going to retire? I don't know. Is he doing like a lot of other people, like Brady, right? Tom Brady. Oh, I retire. Now I come back and win a championship. I retire. I'm going to come back again. He said he wasn't retiring from chess and would continue to play the game he's dominated since becoming the #1 ranked player in 2011. 11 years. Wow. The conclusion is It's very simple, that I'm not motivated to play another match. I simply feel that I don't have a lot to gain by defending the title. So I don't know if they don't pay him enough. This would have been like Bobby Fischer would have been saying, I want more money. You got to offer me more money for me to play. Oh, really? Oh, okay. All right, I'll go out there and I will obviously accept your friend request. How could I not? Let's see. I'll do it on my phone so I can get it faster. Accept. But I got to change that anyway because it shouldn't be that way. I mean, you should be able to go to, maybe you couldn't direct message, but you should have been able to go to my Discord channel and type stuff in there, I guess. Thank you, sir. Yes. Yeah, I know. He just want to play the championship format. And yeah, maybe. And maybe, yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. And yeah, it's kind of like also Rand's playing. And he already destroyed Nepo, and Nepo won the candidates cleanly. So, yeah, you're not seeing the best player playing for the World Championship. That's pretty interesting. For which one? For Americhess, it's coming up. It should actually be on my timer. Right there. You ask and you shall receive. There it is. Now, the date for the collab with Metal Eagle, no idea. We have to set it up. And I still owe Thinker Teacher a follow-up collab with him. I did my first one with him. I'm supposed to do another one. And it does bring more drama. Imagine if Hikaru Nakamura had finished second place. He was very close. If he had finished second place, you'd have the most popular chess streamer playing for the World Championship. Right? That would have been wild. And it would have just busted the internet as far as people watching and stuff. That could have been crazy. That could have been crazy. Yeah, you think about it, Nakamura has a bigger following on streaming than the world champion. So if he could also be the world champion, that'd be just crazy. It would be wild. Oh yeah, I know. At least he says that. And he might not have, because he didn't Magnus say that he wouldn't do it unless what's his name? Ferrugia, unless he was the candidate. He said he didn't want to play it. So he doesn't want to play Nepo again. He's his friend since childhood. He's beaten him. I think he doesn't, and besides the fact that format, he doesn't feel maybe it's a challenge. I don't know. And if you're not making a lot of money, why put all that effort into it? I mean, he's already proven he's the best in the world, held the title for so long it's not funny. He doesn't need to hold it any longer. Right? It's not like you get so much more money. He's known as the best chess player in the world. He's probably got all the endorsements. He's going to get maintaining the title for another cycle won't probably do anything for his pocket. I don't know. No, I don't think so, Chester Roy. I definitely don't think they forced him to retire. I think they wanted him to play. It's better for the game. Better for the game. So this one, great. Not only do we have this, but we have another opportunity to use it in a chess tournament. Yes, I like making chess tournaments for you guys with equal positions. So that's pretty good. Now, so those are our three reasons for instituting the blockade. So let's review those 3 reasons real quick. I do like at the end of the chapter, he does do a review of all the salient points that he made. Okay. Got to run. Hold on a sec. Runny nose, runny nose, runny nose. All right, and we are definitely going to talk about more about passed pawns, and we're going to talk about when to exchange pieces. I think that's just such a basic thing that we can all benefit from. When to exchange pieces and when not to. And my good student, not that my other students aren't good, but John Murphy is one of my favorites. He always asks good questions. He says all the time, I need rules. I need rules. I need rules to play by. You got to give me something that just tells me, in these situations, do these things. Now, I, of course, tell him that you don't have rules for everything. You've got to take each situation. It's situational awareness. You have to be able to adjust to the situation. But rules help you a ton, especially when you don't know what to do. Principles help. Rules help. So if you don't know what to do in a given situation, review your principles and see what comes up. So, how does a passed pawn come into being? Through a majority. And the rule of candidates is that candidates take precedence. Candidates are the ones we push first. Let me go, because this is back to a little bit of just endgame study, right? Just talking about endgames. Let me go to my study, in my private studies. Hello. And we have No. I got a lot of puzzles, a lot of. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Okay. So when we look at things like this, let's go down here. All right. Oh, well, that's a tough one. Let's go one that's maybe not so tough, not so tough. Although these are really good, by the way. I really like those. But when we get to, if we can, I'm not going to get what I need in this. This is not fun. This is not fair. I want to start. Okay, so here, let's just look at this one. I have a pawn majority. Well, here I have three safe pawns, 3 passed pawns. Boom. So, regardless of the fact that we have checkmate, the idea is that how would I take these 3 pawns? The candidate pawn has to go first. This is the one that has no pawn in front of him. If we push this pawn first, he can block and lock. Block and lock, and we're done. All right, so ignoring the queen. So let me just use, I'll use probably smarter just to use a board editor anyway. Let's clear that board. Let's put a pawn majority here against a pawn minority. All right. Sorry. All right. So, this is the pawn. This is what he calls a candidate pawn. It's the one with no pawns in front. That's the one that should get pushed first. Should get pushed all the way up first. All right? If we were to push this pawn first, and I've seen this happen with my students after getting lessons, they push this kind of pawn first, and black says, okay, game over. We just stopped your pawns, right? And we're saying that we have kings out here too. So yes, you could do this, and then you can do this and try to push that pawn, but now I have a passed pawn also. And by the time you work out all the histrionics to get that done, I've got my queen and you don't, right? So it's as simple as knowing which one is your candidate pawn and pushing the correct one. So this would be the wrong one. It's not the candidate. This one is the right one. Because if he pushes, you can just take, or better yet, just run. You just run. And so you do this one first, and even if he tries to do this, then you say, now I'm going to forcibly create a passed pawn. He's not passed yet because this pawn is in his way. But you can make him into a passed pawn. So why must we blockade passed pawns? Question number 2. Because otherwise they are always threatening to advance. Remember, they don't always advance, but they're threatening to advance. Self-annihilation is part of that threat. That he could give up, that pawn could give up his life so that his pieces behind it can get more active. If you don't let him push that pawn and give it up, then those pieces stay inactive, hopefully. All right, and there's 3 reasons. That's one. The other one is because the blockade square is safe from frontal attacks and moreover tends to become a weak point for your opponent. So, this square is a weak point for white because he can't attack it with a pawn, and he's going to have trouble getting you out of there. And again, remember, the knight especially has some elasticity. He can move, and you still can't push without losing him. So he can move and then come back. Even bishops can do that, right? The bishop can move, threaten something and come back. Threaten something and come back, or take something and come back. So if you build up, it's called overprotection. If you build up on this blockading square, and you put a lot of pieces on that blockading square, then depending on what your opponent's doing, he still might not be able to push. Right? Still might not be able to push. So let's say something like that. I don't know, something like that. So you could take, he can't push because he just loses it. Right? You just take. And then the bishop can come back. Now, again, you might want to do that because that frees this bishop, gives the rooks a chance to play, gives a square for your knight. So you're freeing up spaces again for your pieces that are in the rear. And yes, the closer this pawn is, the scarier it is, and you should have blockaded it much earlier. Right? You don't want to blockade that pawn late. And guys, if you can get your pawn safely to the 7th rank, it's a wedge. It is a problem child. You're going to have opportunities galore if you can get that pawn down to the 7th rank. So if you can get him protected to the 7th rank, that's a great weapon. And also remember the thing that we don't think about. I can sacrifice this pawn if it frees up my pieces behind it. Right? So I can sacrifice that pawn if I can get an attack. Okay? All right. Triple fork with the bishop. All right. And the third reason that we blockade past pawns is because an entire enemy complex can become paralyzed. And we saw that in the study. Where's the one? Oh, that's not mine. Somebody else's. Right here, right? The whole enemy complex became stuck with the blockade. All right. What demands may be made of the blockade? And we have the execution of threats from its position. We don't want it just to blockade. We want it to be able to also threaten from its position. And then elasticity, the ability to move and come back, maybe swap out pieces, right? Get the king here. Then when the knight moves, then you get the king in here to blockade. Maybe the king will be a better blockading piece, maybe not. Yes. Yes, yes, pawns, yes. Soul of chess. All right. I think that's enough to get started. Now, I want to go look and see if we could find some games by Chess Wizard and see if he had opportunities. I was watching him play, and because he was streaming for me, and one of the things he said at a couple of times, because he was thinking out loud, and by the way, guys, you lose like 100 rating points easy when you're streaming. Sudaku says you lose brain cells, right? You lose 100 points easy when you're streaming because you're doing everything else. You're talking to chat, you're looking at this and that, you're not focused. Now, some people like Eric Rosen, I wouldn't even say Gotham Chess does as well, but Hikaru Nakamura and Eric Rosen, John Bartholomew, they seem to be able to stream, play extremely fast games, and still explain everything they're doing. John Bartholomew, to me, is amazing at that. He could be playing a bullet game and explain to you what he's thinking while he's making bullet moves. Crazy, crazy stuff. All right, so let's flip through some games of Chess Wizard. All right, and we're just going to flip through some. So here's one he got a draw, and he was playing a 2178, and it was rated, so that got him some points. But what we want to do is we're mostly looking just to see. I just want to see if he had blockade opportunities. We're looking for past pawns to find out if he had blockade opportunities. All right, so we're getting into an endgame situation here. We don't have a passed pawn yet. We do have a candidate. This pawn, remember, this pawn is considered a candidate because there's only one pawn in front of him. And the idea is that he gets pushed first, he takes his place, and he becomes passed. We kind of have a candidate here or a candidate here. Excuse me. Got a tickle. So it's funny because neither one is passed. But if you could get either candidate to be traded off and you take his place, you can get a passed pawn. So these two have potential. This one actually is weird because he doesn't really have potential because this one's still here. This one, no. This one, no. We also have two isolated pawns, one isolated pawn. But we do have the two bishops against the two knights. But as we said, at this level, knights are better than bishops in general. But we also see that we might be in trouble of losing one of our knights right away. And we do. So somehow we got a draw to this. So this is looking good. Let's see. So the question is, does he have a square that it can either go to protect one of the two? Well, you don't want to protect this one because then you'd lose the rook. So do we have a square to go to that we could protect this guy? No. So I know he finds some move, right? But he doesn't protect it. So he loses the knight, and somehow he comes through with this. We're gonna have to see how he does this. So right now he's not down. He's not down, guys. My bad. Let's back up. So somewhere in here, with all this that went on, my goodness. Let's see where he got ahead a piece. So he takes the pawn. No, we don't care about. Oh, I don't even have the move engine on. What's that? Oh, it's because he already analyzed it. You gotta love the analysis engine, right? It just shows you what it wants to show you anyway. So what do we have? We still have 3 to 3. Gives away a pawn. Takes here. Says, come and take me. Takes me. Takes me. Okay, so it's all equal. Oh, white sacrifices the knight for a pawn, seeing that he gets to win one back. Okay, so there you go. No biggie. Black is doing fine. White got a pawn out of it, right? White got a pawn out of it. And so he still has the potential pass pawn here. Everything else is the same, guys. So when I was talking about the potential pass pawn, though, was I talking about it? No, I was talking about it. Not here, though. But anyway, it's here he has potential. If there was a pawn there, which there was originally, that wasn't a potential pass pawn. Okay. So let's see if somebody builds a pass pawn. Ooh, interesting. So you needed to protect the pawn, but one of the things to think about in the endgame, and this is a 2178, which does not impress me. I don't know if I've told you that before. 2100 does not impress me at all. 2300, you start to impress me. 22, yeah, maybe. 21s, not really. Really, 21s make bad moves. 21s make blunders a lot. All right, so there's two attacking the pawn. You could push the pawn, and you can't give up. You're not even giving up that square. So you could push the pawn and say, knight, go away. Where can the knight go? The knight this is the only safe square the knight could go to without being traded off. Not that you want to trade him off. I don't know. But yeah, and that looks like, I don't know why. See, white doesn't need to castle. Castling makes no sense because you want the king in the center of the board. So I think I would have done this and then pushed the king up after, maybe not right away. Maybe I would have done this little trick first. I don't know. But I definitely would not have castled. I don't like castling in this position. I don't get it. So for a 2178 to castle in this position, I don't get it. I don't get it. And he didn't berserk. He's got 10 minutes, 11 minutes. He's got 10:55 on the clock. Why is he castling? And so that would be a good lesson, right, to say, why does white castle here? And if you know, computer doesn't like it either. White goes from being up 1.6, a pawn and a half, to being up only basically half a pawn. Only half a pawn. Okay, I really am getting tired of seeing that stuff on here. How do I get rid of that? That doesn't get rid of it. Get rid of that. Okay, good. Thank you. I don't mind the evaluation gauge. I really don't. Because I think in a lot of ways the evaluation gauge just gives you an idea, right? Are you making headway? Are you improving? I can't get into the specifics of the moves they make because again, I'm not a computer. I can't stomach half those moves, but I can deal with. Oh, okay, I'm doing better. I especially like the evaluation gauge when it's telling you like you're over 2 points or 3 points, because then you can say, okay, no, I'm winning by a decent amount. Okay, so and Black ends up drawing this game with a guy that's 400 points higher than him. All right, so we finally get the push, but why not that push when the king is in this? I don't get it. So we get to trade off the bishop, get rid of one of the bishops, and he does. And now we have a passed pawn. So this is a great example. If white, and look, this is not the passed pawn. This is the passed pawn. This is the passed pawn. We need to blockade the passed pawn. But of course, if we go here, he might eventually get to, but he can't yet. This pawn is the one that we need to blockade, period. That's what white should be trying to do while trying to make this one into a passed pawn. Let's see what happens. So white plays on the open file, does not blockade the pawn. And black says, trade away, have fun. Please, trade away. And he didn't want to, so now we trade away, and guess what? We have a passed pawn. But black's right on time. White could stymie him, and white goes past the blockade, going after the pawn, and here black makes a mistake. Does not play this as well as he could have, right? I remember this game. Yeah, these moves are just painful. Locks in the pawns. The bishop is dead. That bishop is dead. That bishop cannot move. This is sad. And then he makes a pass pawn. So now white makes a pass pawn. And did he do it with the candidate? Yes, the candidate leads. Very good. This move doesn't stop it. And that move definitely doesn't. And so now we have a pass pawn. And white says, what? What do we learn? Give away the pass pawn to give room for his pieces. Right? Give away the pass pawn to give room for his pieces. So he gives away the pawn. And look at this. White is ahead. White is ahead, gigantic amount. Let's see, what does he say? White is ahead 10.6. 10.6. And what's the big mistake? How does black get back to being equal? You went from 10.6 ahead. You were basically 10 and a half points ahead. 10 and a half points to equal with one move, and why I love the endgames. This is why I love endgames. This is why I know people hate endgames. This is why I love endgames. Look at this. You go from 10 and a half points in the lead. 10 and a half points in the lead. With 8 minutes and 22 seconds left on his clock. And it's back to equal. You actually lose a pawn and you end up equal. My gosh. I mean, that's amazing. You think about it. Amazing. G4, yeah. Over here, G4. Yeah. He didn't have to stop that pawn. He can wait. He can wait till it pushes one more time and then go stop him. Meantime, he could be pushing his pawns to make a queen, because what do pass pawns want to do? They want to push. By the way, the king can come here, keeping this pawn in check. You could take that pawn later. If you push this pawn, you take it. You want to get this pawn so he isn't going to be lost to the bishop. But he takes. He takes. Black pushes, and look at black finding these moves. Black says, I gotta free up my pieces. Yes, I have a passed pawn, but my bishop is dead. My king is stuck protecting my bishop. I need to activate my pieces. So what does he do? He gives away the passed pawns. He gives away both passed pawns to release the bishop. Both passed pawns to release the bishop. Right? I mean, just what Nimzovich was talking about, the game is dead equal now. The game is dead equal. And who found that move? Our man Chess Wizard. So the 1741 said, I'm stuck here. I got to throw away the pawn. I got to throw away another pawn, and I win this pawn. And he's got a drawing game. Now, some of you, will say, oh, you should play for a win. What? You got to know when you're losing, guys. You got to know when you're stuck and you're losing. And white should be winning. White is ahead 10.5 points, guys. So you can blindly say, I'm just going to play for a win and lose the game. Or you could say, this should be a draw. I'm going to make it a draw. I'm going to force it. I'm going to be able to do it. I can make a draw out of this. Now, black doesn't make all the best moves, but it's like, if you notice the computer saying, it's still equal. It's still equal. And the computer's happy with all this. This is all equal. Why? Because you can never take the bishop. He can run between the two squares. If you push the pawn, he just takes, and you still can't push, and it's a draw. But you start getting scary when you why are you leaving this pawn? This king should have just stayed there. King could have just stayed between these two squares. The king comes over, then the bishop could just move. You have no reason to move your king. It says it's still equal, though, so, I mean, he's still okay. But I'm just saying, why are we moving the king at all? Why are we moving the king? There we go. Move the bishop. Move the bishop. Move the bishop. You have no fear. Just move the bishop. Just move the bishop. Now, interestingly, this bishop is the correct color. So if we were to give up the bishop and the pawn for the two pawns, we could get into trouble. We could get into trouble. But because we'll be able to push this pawn and run it, and he'll have to take it with the bishop, we'll be able to take the pawn, so it should be a draw. And as you can see, it is a draw. Isn't that a beautiful thing? But that was all found when we look at what do you do with passed pawns. What do you do with passed pawns? You push them, and sometimes you push them to free up your pieces. You had to push it to free up your piece, and the best move was not taking. It's a blunder. And by the way, I said that you would do this to keep the bishop from taking. The computer says h5. Why? 1, 2, 3, protected by the bishop. 1, 2, 3, baby. d3, he says, I don't care. Bishop to c3. Bishop to c3. e5, he doesn't care. Pushes. Now you stop it. You look. What? 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 Can he what is that? What is the computer doing? How does the computer think that's good? I don't get it. And you would think you could take, he would take, and your bishop could go back, and then he's got to come after your pawn, right? Then he's got to come after the pawn, right? And as he comes after that pawn, can you just go eat these pawns and then get back in time? I don't know. But he says bishop to d2. He says you could take that pawn. Makes me wonder too, couldn't you do this? Why couldn't you do that? Why wouldn't he do that? I mean, that doesn't work. You queen next move. That's game, right? Why in the world would the correct move be that? Why wouldn't you just go and queen? What am I missing? I'm totally confused on that. I'm sorry. I'm totally confused. I don't see why we can't just push. I don't see why we can't push. Ooh. Oh man, red iron, not good. Okay, so yeah. But anyway, so white should have won this game. Not the way I was thinking with this. Maybe allowing. I don't know what it's allowing white. I mean, but I like the H pawn because it's protected by the bishop. But yeah, this should have been a win for white. But you make one little misstep, and you think I got free pawns, and you're thinking I don't care. I still have a full pass pawn, and I'm gonna go win these pawns, aren't I? No, you're not. No, you're not. And even if you win this pawn, if your bishop is here, you can never get that pawn. That's just amazing about a bishop. We're always learning about rooks and pawns. Oh man, bishops and pawns. That is pretty slick. So that is pretty slick. So right here, this game is now equal. This game right now is equal. This wouldn't be a bad one to put into the puzzle either. Let's put this into our study for tournament equal positions. Oh no, I don't want that. Oh, I did it wrong. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, I don't want the whole game. Does this one the whole game too? No, because that was only a position. Okay. So let me go back. Where's my Chess Wizard games? I lost my Chess Wizard game. That's what I did. Nope, that's not it. Let me go find my Chess Wizard game. Okay, we got to go to games. We got to go to advanced search. We're going to make it at least 10 minutes on the initial time. That's how I found it before. I don't like looking at games that are faster than 10 minutes. I don't like looking at blitz. And then we looked at the one where he was playing a 21 and he got a draw. Nice draw. 2178. Yep, there it is. Okay, and we're going to go back here to the end. Alright, so right now it's an equal position. So now I need to take the FEN from this position. But I do need to make sure that I know that it's black to move. So let's take the FEN. Oh, I think it knows. I think it knows. And let's go to our study. And we're going to find our private studies. And what is that one? Tournaments. I don't want hot. I want recently updated. And I want... Why isn't it like right near the top? Don't tell me this one is public too. It is. Oh my gosh. Okay. Chapter 3 is fine. I don't care what it's called. Orientation is white. It doesn't matter. I do need to put in the FEN. And it should know whose turn it is. Ooh. We were looking at it from black's point of view, though. And is it black's move? Yes, it is. Okay. Cool beans. That's another one for our tournament. Equal tournament. I like it. All right, guys. All right. Any questions, thoughts about blockades? I think it was very instructive. I found a game like that of Chess Wizards that fit the bill for a blockade and for taking a pass pawn and sacrificing it for an opportunity. That was right on time. By the way, this game was also, I found interesting. At the end, I kept thinking that Chess Wizards should have looked for an opportunity. When this bishop got here, I thought, boy, if he gets an opportunity to take here and then go there. So, you know, I was thinking, if he did things like this, then he's threatening to take. takes, you push, and he has to give away the rook. Does he? If not, he's going to give away the rook. And yeah, he has a pass pawn, but then you have a bishop to stop him maybe. That, just those kind of thoughts were going through my head, that this was threatening to take here. Just a technique that was on my mind, right? It was flashing in my mind. But there's no pass pawns here. This one is a candidate, but it's not a pass pawn. So there were no pass pawns to deal with. I thought he resigned this game too early though. And here's an example, because this came up. All right, so let's look at this a little bit right here. All right, so let's just go through it. Okay, not a pass pawn, right? It's an isolated queen's pawn. It's not a pass pawn. Drop in pawns. I did like this. Now the king does want to be active, but I mean, now you can start eating pawns back if you want. Got to be a little bit careful. Forks with knights, right? As long as you have a knight, you always have chances. Throws in the check. Can't he just... Yeah, I think this was a blunder. Yeah, that was a blunder at the time. He just gave away a piece. Yeah, it's like it's not protected, but it's attacked. So that's just a blunder. Blunders happen, guys. Blunders happen. By the way, this check would have won the rook. So how's that? He finds a check, but he finds the wrong one. He has 8 minutes and 34 seconds. 8 minutes and 34 seconds. He picks the one where the knight can take, and he can't take back. But if he had went this way, there's nothing else that could take but the king. The king can't take because you'd be in check, even though you can't take the king because you'd be in check, because you can never take the king anyway. Right there, right then, right there, he would win that rook. Right? You pick where the king goes. I don't care. Here or here. And you get the rook. And what does he get? What does he get for his? He gets nothing. I mean, right? Chess Wizard should be winning. So that was a rook right there. So how do we find that? Let's take a look. This is a check. He has squares to go to, right? The knight can't move because we're pinned. But this check does what? It just says check. This check, while it says check, is an alignment issue. It's a skewer, guys. With 8 minutes and 34 seconds, our hero, Chess Wizard, needs to find that. It took him 4 seconds. Now, there was no increment. He used 4 seconds of his valuable time at 8 minutes and 34 seconds at this point in the game. Equal on minor pieces, equal on major pieces. He's down a pawn, down one pawn, and he rushes into a move that drops a piece. And what I talk about principle is it's more important for me to think about the principle, not that, oh yeah, I missed the knight goes backwards. Regardless if the knight goes backwards, this check is not as good, even if the knight wasn't there, as this check, right? So you might say, oh, well, I could have won that pawn. No, you can't, right? Maybe you can. Maybe if I don't take, because then you get this one in, right? But no, because I'm still attacking the rook now. I guess you could come back, right? Yeah, maybe you could come back. Okay. So maybe that would work if the knight couldn't take. Because I know if you go up here, you can get the same thing and threaten to win the bishop. Right? Yeah. So you'd be in checkmate. But obviously he's not going to do that when he could just win the free piece. Yeah. So I like it that he's thinking about checkmates, but he could have also just went here and stopped the checkmates. Right? I mean, the only checkmate you had is if he goes to one of these two squares, he still had that square. And what's more important, as I was saying, besides the fact that he missed this, even so, This is a checkmate only if he makes one of these two moves. I don't know if Chess Wizard saw that far in advance that he could mate him in the middle of the board. But he could have went back here and not been in mate trouble at all. So then that bothers me. But then more importantly is that this one gives you an alignment and an immediate win of material. But it's an alignment thing. That's my point. I can understand you not even noticing it's a skewer. But you should just say, whoa, I can line things up. Again, back to alignment. I can line things up. And he would have picked the right one. So alignment to me has always been, I say, if you want true chess enlightenment, look for chess alignment. So there you go. Find the alignment, and he would have been ahead in this game. Easy breezy. Head in this game. By the way, this is not a pass pawn. It's a candidate pawn, but he could have been blockaded anyway because the same rules apply. He has no pawns to attack. The blockading piece would still have safety from straight on. So this would have been a great square for that knight to be right there if he could have gotten him there. But otherwise, alignment. So this hurts because that just gives away material. It's just free material, so it's very painful. I thought it was interesting that he pushed because he doesn't mind if he takes, right? That fixes the pawns. I mean, he's down material though, and this is where White says, I'll sacrifice the pawn, even fix your pawns, because then my rook will come to life. And so that's what White does. What we just read about with Nimzovich, now the piece behind the pawn can come to life. Black is like, okay, at least I get my pawns fixed. And White says, yeah, but I get to have this situation going on where I feel like I'm better off now. My pawns are better. Better than they were. Trying to stop the knight from having active play. I kind of like the pawn staying here, except that when he gets here, he's going to have two pieces attacking. But if I remember correctly, I was thinking that Black had some counterplay. And I think the counterplay was this, because that's already attacked twice, and this does not help. And so then if White goes back here, he gained nothing. He lost the tempo. And Black is feeling good because he just gained a tempo. So, just a thought there. Okay. Anyway, so there's another game by Chess Wizard where blockades and pass pawns came into play. Draw. Do we want to look at a draw? Another draw. Oh, this one's a loss or a win. It's a, I don't know what it is. Black is victorious. Black won. Okay. Black won. This one's a much more interesting endgame looking one. White resigned for some reason, but let's just quickly see if we can find any pass pawns that needed to be blockaded. Oops, we dropped a pawn. Ooh, this is not feeling overall good. All right, so let's see what we have so far. We have a passed pawn, guys. Bada boom, bada bing. We don't have a piece to put there, and he has a bishop to chase away, so we might end up blockading on this square. But we do have a chance to blockade. I don't like that. So this is an open file. We jump on the open file. We want to control the open file. The enemy says, I want the open file. We can leave, and so that our rooks can fight for the open file. But when we take, we basically give away. We say, take the open file. So the other thing I want to work with Chess Wizard on at some point soon is where your rooks belong. And they belong on open files and semi-open files. And they belong talking to each other. But we want to own the open file. And here we gave away the open file. And the other thing that you can do, sometimes you don't mind giving away the open file if there's no entry squares. But Black has an obvious entry square right here. And he didn't take it. He didn't take it. He chases the bishop first, which I don't like because now the bishop can come here and remove an entry square and preemptively blockade the pawn. Yeah, I don't get this. Now, this is even scarier. The guy he's playing is a 23-22. They both berserked, but he's playing a 23-22. So, I'm sure the 23-22 knows better than I do about why he did this move, that it was a better move. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Nope. I don't know why you wouldn't check here. And I don't, maybe he comes up here to blockade. But then you get this pawn or this pawn. Oh my goodness. And by the way, if you take here and you think, oh, yeah, but now I get the open file. Here's what I just said. Now there's no open squares to get to. That open file might be open, but there's no activity. There's no place to go. Right? So you can stop the activity. Now, granted, we could do stuff like that, but that doesn't work because we protect it from behind. We're doing great. And if he, you could go here and say, let's trade rooks. So you could trade rooks because then your king is no longer tied to this file. And you do have a pawn majority here and you have a passed pawn. Again, I think easy winning proposition for black. So yeah, I don't understand why black did not come in here. And instead he chases the bishop back to a square that keeps the rook out. I don't get it. Who cares? Okay, so we're going to protect it, right? No, he gets the, right, not discovered attack, but the pin. So you protect against the pin, and now you have to, no, I guess you don't have to. I don't know why we're not protecting the pawn. I'm lost on that one. Because I would definitely take right away. Yeah, I don't know what this move did. I don't know why we're blockading a bishop. I don't get it. Nope. Now, if you go here, and he takes, and you think, oh, see, I'm going to win another. No, because you take, and he can take the pawn, and you're a happy camper, because you're up a piece. So you would take, and he would have to take back, and then you could take, and you're still a happy camper. Are you winning? No, you're down 2 pawns, 1 pass, but you have the bishop. He doesn't. Doesn't have a piece. You do. So I don't get this move. I thought you pretty much had to do this move. I think you have to do that move, and he can start hitting at your pawn chain and try to get 2 passed pawns, but that's the game that you'd play there forward. You have to watch the VOD, buddy. You're our hero. All right, so there is another opportunity, and I unless Thinker Teacher tells me why I'm cracking up, I don't know why you don't come here and win material to start with, and or this one, but you're going to win material, and you can keep the enemy rook out, so I don't get it. All right, well, you know what? We should end our stream because Gridiron is going to lose power. All right, you got webcams? Great. Okay, you work it out. You work it out. Let us know when you're streaming, buddy. We'll advertise. We will advertise. We'll raid you and all that kind of fun stuff. All right, let's see who we can raid. It's good.